Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about Mythos, the Glasswing project, and how Skyhawk Security can help. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So should be no surprises here. Mythos, the Glasswing project, and the technical debt crisis. So I'm going to introduce myself and Nathan, who's joined me today. We'll talk about what Mythos is. What does this mean for you? We'll go into unified vulnerability management, talk about some of our differentiators, demo case study, and then close. One housekeeping thing before we move on. If you want to ask questions, please do so. You can use the chat or the Q&A. I'll be checking both throughout the webinar. So first, my name is Jennifer Gill. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Skyhawk. I have over 25 years in high-tech marketing experience, and I've been 5 years in security product marketing, and I've had leadership positions at a couple companies. And then with me is Nathan Schmidt. He's our solutions engineer. He has over 25 years as a solution engineer, architect, many technical roles, and he's also been helping with some marketing things too, like this webinar.
I've worn a lot of hats over time, so it's no shortage that doing it here too. So
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Okay. So what's happening with the threat landscape? So I don't know if anyone saw the CrowdStrike Global Threat Report they put out, I think in March. But AI attacks are here. So 89% increase year over year in AI-based attacks. With that, attack windows are really shrinking. So a couple years ago, if you looked at that report, you would have seen the average attack was days. Last year was 59 minutes, and this year is 27 minutes. So the time to respond is shrinking. And humans aren't as fast as AI. So it takes 6 hours on average for us to respond. And the over year attack velocity is increasing. So like the threat is real around AI and attacks. So what is Mythos? So it's an AI-powered vulnerability discovery exploit generation system. So basically, AI is being used at a rapid rate to find CVEs really, really fast. With that, people saw, gee, we're going to be identifying all this stuff. We should maybe have a way to work through this wave of work that's coming our way. And so Project Glasswing was born. And that's a way to, for third parties, multiple parties to kind of work together around this disclosure effort. I've seen a couple webinars on this from other cloud security companies and security companies just generally. And what they've been saying is patch faster. I don't think that's really manageable just from a human resource perspective. Um, it especially with AI being used to identify these things are going to be complex. So threat actors are using AI to get better, faster, stronger. You saw that on the previous slide. We need to do that too.
absolutely. And I'm going to introduce a statement here, which is, you say Mythos, I say Mythos. It's sort of the Azure sort of conversation and how we pronounce it. So if you hear those differentiations over the course of the webinar today, that's why. But just wanted to throw that in real quick.
You say tomato, I say tomato, kind of
Exactly.
thing. So yeah. So I say mythos. Nathan says mythos. Whatever you want to say, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, so what does it mean for you? So threat actors identify weaponizable threats far faster than you. They are or will be using mythos in AI to their benefit. And really, from a Skyhawk security perspective, and you'll see this throughout our demo, throughout the webinar, the criticality alert is not really what's important. What matters is, can a threat actor weaponize this? And I call it kind of like boosting. Can they dynamically manipulate any of these vulnerabilities or CVEs to get to the next step or the next asset in your cloud environment? And can they do that again to get further into your cloud environment to where they eventually get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which is your really valuable business assets? So we look at exploitable and what versus weaponizable, and that's something you hear Nathan and I talk about a lot. So exploitable is, could a threat actor use this? Sure. Can they use it to get to something important for you? That's not what you're going to hearing about when something's exploitable. That's what you hear from Skyhawk when you hear us talk about what's weaponizable. This is what a threat actor is going to actually use in a breach. And so, Nathan, you and I were talking about this right before the webinar. I don't know if you had anything to add.
Absolutely. And I'll say on top of this as well is that look at the end of the day, Anthropic, when they were creating Mythos and the model that has this capability, and what we're hearing, and we've had some customers actually talk to this. They're a part of Project Glasswing, and they've been talking about what this means, and they're saying, look, it's real, at but it's an important piece to note here that what we're talking about in terms of Mythos finding vulnerabilities, it's doing a really great job at being able to connect dots. It's creating an understanding of context between potentially disparate vulnerabilities in what it's looking at, and that's viable, right? That's important, and especially as customers, or as organizations have been, it takes a lot of work to patch. You have to test it. Does it create other issues in the system? And so simply being told you need to figure out how to do this faster, or turn the patching over to AI tools, or just respond faster, those are really difficult for a lot of people, because they look, a lot of folks have, we call it the technical debt crisis, because there's been technical debt for years, and this is amplifying Mythos is those connections between them. But there's a way through this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll certainly talk through that.
Yeah, perfect. And so I don't know if anyone saw this report that came out from Gartner just last week, and it's basically an analyst take explaining this risk to your board. And this was a quote that he prepared. Paul Furtado, actually, no, Paul is a really good guy. And he talked about this is how you need to talk about it. It's the exposure window is no longer governed by our patch schedule, but by how fast attackers can automate exploitation using AI. AI significantly reduced the time attackers need to turn known vulnerabilities into working attacks. So taking it from exploitable to weaponizable, that's the key. And as a result, our material risk exposure is increasingly determined by how quickly we can detect and mitigate exposure, not by how quickly we can patch. This change requires us to rethink vulnerability prioritization, exposure management, and response speed to avoid materially increased breach risk.
So
So
don't take our word for it.
yeah,
You can take Gartner's word for it. I mean, we're all seeing the same thing, right? And I think one of another thing to point out is that what Mythos is finding, and what AI is finding in these things, aren't, they're new vulnerabilities, but they're not new capabilities of this. It's not finding anything new or magical. It's just more of what was already there, and connecting those dots. And I think that's a if you take nothing else away from the sort of risk that Mythos is bringing to the table, know that it's not creating like net new capabilities of vulnerabilities. It's just finding more of what have always been vulnerabilities and connecting those together.
yeah, actually, that's a great point. And this is just making things again faster for the threat actors.
That's right.
Okay. So start with the use case because I think this really crystallizes how we work, and then it shows you how we're able to help you with this Mythos, more vulnerabilities are identified. But we actually have had a use case around unified vulnerability management for quite a while. And it's because we speak with people who have hundreds of thousands of unvalidated alerts in their CNAP or in their vulnerability management tool. And teams are overwhelmed. And we have a couple case studies on our website. We did a webinar in March with a customer, and they had, tens of thousands. He wouldn't give me a specific number. And I don't blame him for that. A lot of security teams don't want to be specific, but tens of thousands. And we spoke with someone at reInvent who had hundreds of thousands of CNAP alerts. And so, how can you sort through that? You can't fix that. If my boss told me I had 10,000 of anything to do, I would probably be overwhelmed. So with Skyhawk, we ingest findings from these. We apply intelligent simulations using our digital twin technology. This is a differentiator for us. And so we can see what can be weaponized, or what I like to say, what can be boosted to eventually get to what is very valuable. So now alerts are prioritized for practical action. You can say, hey, these vulnerabilities can be used together to be weaponized, to increase permissions, to create roles, or to do all those things that threat actors do to eventually get to something very valuable to your business. And so here's that attack chain, attack path that can be weaponized. So you need to fix these. And now you're focusing your limited resources on what's going to actually fix and reduce cloud risk.
Yeah, and this is something we'll definitely be focusing on in the demo as well.
Yeah, so for sure. So then this is the purple team in its entirety. So we talked mostly about left of boom, so the preemptive approach. So the AI red team is a continuous non-disruptive adversary simulation against your actual environment. And so it preempts the exposures. So you have the full context within the cloud of what the exposure is, how it can be exploited, and then weaponized to get something that's important to you, and you can fix it. It's a complementary security platform, so we're used with Amazon, cloud native tools for Amazon, third-party vulnerability management, third-party CNAPP solutions. And so all that's to be like, hey, we're going to find these things first, so you can remediate what exposes valuable assets. So that's kind of the left of boom. And then right of boom, because we're running these simulations continuously, we're able to pre-train your SOC on real attack scenarios so that you can pre-label it and say, hey, when I see these activities in the environment, this could be indicating a threat actor in the cloud. And I need to take a closer look at that. You can put an automated response through Skyhawk or third-party tools. And also, so that doesn't turn into a breach. With that continuous ongoing to pre-train the SOC. So the reason that's important is because you're going to find there are some vulnerabilities that cannot be patched for whatever reason. And so this is why the right of boom is so important, because you're going to find all these things in Mythos. There may be quite a few that you're not able to patch or remediate. And that's where the ability to respond is so important. And then also with this continuous testing, you're able to validate your compensated controls work before attackers find out that they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So like if you think about the unified vulnerability management, what we're doing there, this is how we get that the ability to find what is weaponizable, right? And being able to use this, Jen talked about, not being able to patch it. It could be that there isn't a way to patch it, yet, or it could be that there are some very strict change management controls that a business has that is preventing that from happening, where it's going to create business continuity concerns, and those are things that you do need to consider in this, and why simply pedaling faster maybe isn't the best course of action all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what is the real differentiator for Skyhawk. The AI-based red team, which is rooted in our digital twin technology. And we get a lot of questions around this, like what is a digital twin? What does a simulation mean? So I'm going to actually turn it over to Nathan for this slide to give a good overview. Nathan, can you tell us what the digital twin is and how is it an
Absolutely.
intelligent simulation? Over to
Yeah, and the market talks about the digital twin, and I really think it's more of a descriptor than an actual thing, in most cases, because everybody seems to have maybe a different view of what that actually is. But for us, it's what we're doing. We talked about the AI. We have so we're not just applying a frontier large language model as the basis of what we're doing here. There is a deep learning AI that we have trained on thousands thousands of TTPs. And so what this is for us is that in that AI, we're creating a digital representation, a digital model, a simulated model in the AI that we can be able to attack. And so, there's no additional cost. We're not creating a second environment and doubling the cost of your environment. Also, this enables us to be able to do things like do this purple teaming on production environments without concerns about the rules of engagement, without the concerns of egregious permissions in granting us access to those things as a result of this. So this is the core foundation that what allows us to be able to offer this weaponization view in a way that really nobody else in the market does, that may leverage that digital twin technology in one of those other ways, but not in the way that we're doing it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as Nathan mentioned, since it's a digital representation of your environment, we can do the attacks. We don't come in with pre-scripted attacks.
Exactly.
These are designed based on what you have in place for your cloud architecture and what you have in place for your security controls. So the attacks that we run within your digital simulation environment are going to be very different than we do for someone else because their cloud is different. So to come in with anything pre-scripted is not going to surface what your team needs to know to secure your cloud.
Absolutely.
And so this is just one example from a real customer. So they had over 500,000 vulnerabilities. That was their starting point. And so basically through the simulation of using our AI-based red team, they were able to find that they only had 7 vulnerabilities that needed to be fixed. And this is what was affecting their crown jewels. Now, it doesn't mean you don't want to look at the other things. You probably do. But when you have a small team and you need to focus and you need to protect your data now, those 7 is what you need to address immediately. So that's a lot easier to manage than trying to sort through the 500,000 to find the 7. Skyhawk tells you the 7. You're cutting to the front of the line and being like, oh, this is what I need to do, not trying to figure that out from 500,000. Okay, and now we're over for the demo. So I'm going to stop sharing. Here it is over here. And Nathan, you should be able to share.
Yes. And it should be
It's
sharing
coming.
now.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, and again, I'm going to lead off very similarly with what we did in the presentation so far, and lead with the vulnerability side of the equation because when we're talking about Mythos. And specifically what the model is doing and what it's capable, and a lot of the discussion has been about vulnerabilities, and so our use case is that we are built to live alongside the popular vulnerability management tools that are out there. Your Wiz, Tenable, Orca. We're partnered with Tenable, so this is a great way to be able to, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. But this is a great way to be able to understand and visualize how we get to this point of weaponizable. What we're doing is we are collecting that vulnerability telemetry from the vulnerability management tools, bringing that into Skyhawk, and being able to review, and I'll talk about how we do that. But the net outcome, and I think what this generates really clearly, is this is a sanitized customer example of one of our customers where we were able to bring in the AWS inspector, Tenable data, and for those vulnerabilities, and we can see that even though those tools are have add-on modules where you can use AI to connect dots for context, and they're using priority rules to better understand what you may consider to be highly valuable inside of your environment. In this particular case, the customer had over 115,000 total vulnerabilities. And this is something we see over and over and over. And even through all that context, even through all of the capability that those have to be able to try and reduce noise, it still generated over 7,000 theoretically exploitable vulnerabilities in this environment. And while this is incredibly important, we think about in this technical debt, in the technical debt crisis, are you going to have to move from left to right? Is this a compliance concern for you overall? Yes. Will you need to address these theoretically exploitable vulnerabilities at some point in time? Absolutely. But your teams are overwhelmed. They are tasked day in with day out going through this list of theoretical vulnerabilities and trying to figure out which is the sharpest needle in a stack of needles. And the biggest challenge with that is they're spending wasting time trying to understand that through that. With Skyhawk, what we're bringing to the table is we bring our unique capacity to be able to identify exactly what is weaponizable. And then you can even pare that down and give us the business priority rules to define what are the crown jewels in your environment. Is there an account? Is there a subscription? Are you using Big ID or Macy or Purview or something like that that's already tagging important assets in your environment? You can bring those in and be able to identify those in this tool as well. Now, from this point, this gives us an incredible capability time to be able to understand what is driving this. And we talked a little bit about this over the course of the presentation so far, but I want to show you what this looks like actually inside Skyhawk and how we're getting to that. So we're able to identify what is weaponizable, and we're doing it through a process like this. So in our attack simulation, again, as we talked about earlier, this is a deep learning AI model. So this has been trained over 8 years on thousands of TTPs, and each one of those, tactics and processes that are considered in those TTPs, you can almost think of those as like independent agents inside of what we're doing. So our AI is like a specialist. So it's trained specifically to understand what it needs to find and what it can do with what it finds to be able to actually change your environment. And again, it's changing that environment in a digital model, a digital representation, a simulation of what is going on in your cloud. And that's important because you don't want to create business continuity concerns. You don't want to limit your rules of engagement because at the end of the day, attackers aren't using rules of engagement. They're going to use whatever they find and do whatever they can to compromise your environment. So what we're actually showing you here is an example of, you'll see these lateral movement graphs in other tools as well. But what's really important here is you'll notice, we're showcasing the alert for a particular role. Yes, it has the ability to access another role because of excessive permissions, and with those permissions, it was able to utilize a CVE and basically compromise 43 different assets. And the way that it does that, I think, is really unique. And again, not just about finding and connecting dots of theoretical risk. It's actually thinking, what can I do with what I find? And what it found was it was able to get a hold of an access key. And that can happen by a lot of different mechanisms. But what you're going to see in this list is not what is theoretically possible. These are actually represent what the our adversarial AI red team was able to do to the simulation to be able to do this. And it shows you those steps along the way. So with that token, with that secret, it was able to, create its own EC2 instance. It was able to then utilize that instance profile to create its own security group, create its own ingress and egress. So it's not just finding; it's not looking at the topology. It's not just looking at the map. It's changing the map. It's changing the graph to be able to say, what can I do to get access and compromise this environment? So ultimately, it's able to run remote code execution and it's able to deploy its crypto miner. That is the key element for what we're doing and our key capability for what gets us to that weaponizable understanding inside of the vulnerabilities and what we're doing there to help reduce noise. Now, from this point, we were talking about left of boom and right of boom. This is where we get into the conversation about so what do you do with this? Obviously, with the vulnerability and weaponizable vulnerability information, this is going to integrate into the things that you use and however you operationalize. So that can go to your ServiceNow, to your Jira, to Slack, however it is that you're operationalizing. We're going to work with you and make sure that your teams, when they get a weaponizable alert from Skyhawk, they know this is what I need to work on first. But if you can't patch it, if it's something that you can't either maybe it's a 0 day and now all of a sudden there isn't a good patch for it, or there's a lot of dependencies related to the patch, or like we talked about earlier, there could be change controls that the organization just can't do this because it could create risk to how the business operates. And since you're looking to prevent your business from going down from a vulnerability, you don't want to make that happen faster by just patching and making your business go down because you're trying too hard to or working too fast, too hastily to try and take care of these. So what we offer is this from this perspective. So while we're going through this, we have a class leading CDR in the background that's acting as this filter, that's understanding what's happening when our AI red team is doing this and how we would react if this happens. So we'll show you all of these steps along the way. How is Skyhawk responding to these things? And then what we do is we go that extra mile, that last mile, if you will, to provide you not only an understanding of what's happening with this, what the root cause. We provide for you, remediation. So we're not doing, a lot of the questions that come out, and hopefully we're getting some questions here over time. But what ends up happening here is that we're not looking to automatically remediate. Again, this is a component where we want to provide for you the best way for your organization to be able to do this. And so, we can provide the scripts for Terraform, for Python, however you're doing that today. If you're using CrowdStrike or Splunk, we also provide for you the scripts that you can use so that you can respond to this. It's not just about patching. It's also being able to have the information for you so that your organization can make the best decision on what it needs to do to be able to do this. And being able to respond quickly to reduce that mean time to response when you're seeing these, and know that when this happens, it's not a false positive. We showed it to you in the AI red team. You know what that looks like step by step. So now you can tell your SOC, you can work with your tooling to be able to respond to this as quickly as possible. So that's really what this looks like and how we're able to deliver that weaponizable component. And I'll add one more piece here with regards to the business priority rules, just so that you can see it. Again, you can add those accounts. You can add, if you have a naming convention, you can put in the regex for that. Again, any keys, any tags associated with critical data. And one of the really cool things, and we actually took this to and released this at RSA this year and when we went. But not only do we offer that great capability in the business priority rules so that your company can understand, or so your business can understand where your crown jewels are, we add an additional amplifier to that. So we are tracking what are the global threat actors are doing. So when you think about APT41, Scattered Spider, Anonymous, those kinds of things, we're tracking what they're currently favoring in terms of CVEs and what that looks like. And so we actually provide this additional amplifier, which is really important for and we've had our customers with PCI compliance requirements tell us this, that being able to understand this global threat actor amplifier helps them be able to make better decisions, because now they can if they know that there's a global threat actor and it's a crown jewel, this is something I need to work on first. But they may actually want to address a weaponizable vulnerability or weaponizable risk in their environment that has this global threat actor on it, because that's really important for them in their PCI journey. So, look, this is a quick view into understanding the capability of what we're doing here to reduce noise in this vulnerability landscape with Mythos, uncovering these new and novel vulnerabilities. No, we're seeing those. We see how those connect inside of your environment today, and so this is a great way to get in front of that and to be able to see how to find the vulnerabilities that are weaponizable in your infrastructure and help with that technical debt crisis. So if there's no questions from the chat, Jennifer, I can turn it over to you.
Well, there was a question, someone asked how the digital twin is a digital copy and how
Mm.
is it not one for one? And I guess it sounds like they're expecting to see something in the UI, but it's sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah, so what we're doing, so the digital twin, and again, I want to reiterate this because I think it's incredibly important to underscore. So th- there is no market-wide singular definition for digital twin. And I think that's a really important takeaway in the conversation. Um, and what we're doing when we connect to the cloud, so we are focused on public cloud, AWS, Azure, GCP. And so when we connect to the cloud, what we're doing is we are getting that telemetry from the cloud to understand how your infrastructure is set up. And then when we connect to your vulnerability management tool and get that telemetry from your vulnerability management tool, we're able to combine those and be able to take that telemetry, and so that the model, the representation, the simulation engine that is running is in the AI. So the AI is taking that telemetry and is able to create the map of what your cloud is, what it looks like. If you're connecting your production environments, we only use read-only permissions when we connect to your cloud, and this is really important because if you it, if you're not creating a representation of your environment. So when you think of, let's if we walk through what is commonly in the market. So there's AI penetration testing or AI, attack surface scanning and these kinds of things that are out there. These are looking to see what it can access from the outside and what it can get to once it gets in. Those always have rules of engagement, meaning you're always having to define exactly what it can or cannot touch. And you're defining that explicitly. There are predefined rules about what it can do. There are predefined attacks that it's doing, because you don't want, if you point that at production and you go down and you're unable to deliver for your customer, if you have to create, long maintenance windows to be able to do that attack, what if it does something and you can't get that completed in the maintenance window? These are the challenges that we see associated with that. With our modeling, we're able to continuously do this. It's not just about scheduling and fast scheduling in between pen tests or something along those lines. This is what happened in those attack surface methodologies. But with this, we're able to continuously attack that simulation engine. That simulation engine is constantly updating. So as your cloud updates every 6 to 12 hours, we're updating right along with you and updating that red team and updating the weaponizability that's in your platform. And that is what the key differentiator is for our technology. It's hard to explain when, like, if you like, I've been using this analogy, like, to me, digital twin is like the word donut. And a lot of people aren't talking about the actual donut, it's referring to the shape. And so a digital twin is a shape of an idea around how to create a model. But we're doing it, I think, very differently. And I hope you see the same.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to share my,
All right. I will stop sharing for now.
there we go. So share over to here. Okay, so we just covered the demo. So just a couple more slides. So I think you've seen that we secure every use case to reduce cloud risk. So fight AI with AI. We're finding the threat exposures in your cloud, the vulnerabilities, the CNAP alerts, all that stuff. We prioritize threats to your crown jewels to truly reduce business risk. We're able to validate your security controls and help you prioritize alerts. And I think you saw all of this in the demo and in the discussion today. So here's one of our customers. So he did a webinar with us that's up on our website. It's also on our YouTube channel. So Amit Levron, he's a CISO at Sunday Sky. And he was able, during the webinar, he actually pulled up his Skyhawk interface and was like, we're focusing on the top 3.3% of what we're getting from our CNAP platform right now. So imagine reducing your alert noise by 99.7%. So, if you think about someone having, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, like it really is cutting through the noise for you. So it really helps him.
And
Um,
just if I can real quick, I think it's important to note that a lot of that can play into how you have the business priority set up in there. And so if maybe you haven't done a great job of prioritizing in your CNAP, so it could even be more than 0.3%. It could be 0.01%. The mileage certainly varies with your experience.
Yeah, for sure. And then tenable alert noise reduction. So this is a real example from a customer. So they were able to go from 40,000 alerts, so again, tens of thousands, down to just a couple hundred. Um, okay. And then, so this is something Nathan and I were talking about right before the webinar, so I hope it translates well. So when we talk about what you see in your CNAP or in your vulnerability management tool, um, there's many different kinds of alerts. So there's critical, high, medium, low. So these are what you're getting from a CVE perspective. And then you kind of get with, okay, so we're looking at the criticality of the configuration of the vulnerability versus the perceived business value of the at-risk asset. And this gives you like another way to prioritize and look at what should be fixed, what should not be fixed. But it's still only two-dimensional, but it's helpful. So then when we take it to that two-dimensional, like obviously you want to focus on anything that's looking at your very high assets, high value assets, so critical value and high value. But depending on what medium value is and the configuration of the alert, you also might want to look at critical and high in the middle there too. So Nathan, anything to add? You want to jump in on the next slide?
Uh, yeah, let's go ahead and keep populating.
Okay. So then if we look at this, this is what CNAPs are missing. They're not telling you necessarily that, hey, you have this kind of low criticality CVE in terms of risk, but it's on something very valuable to your business. And then, of course, this over here, that's what the market would label as noise because it says, oh, this is a critical CV. And I actually had someone come up to me at reInvent and they said, I hate our CNAP. And I was like, okay, what happened? And they said, we had this critical alert, but it was on our test environment. And it just doesn't matter. But they're calling me on a Saturday. They're saying the CNAP says this is critical. We need to look at this right now. It's really important, blah, blah, blah. But I'm trying to tell them it's on our test environment right now, and our test environment is empty. This does not matter. And it was really difficult to have that back and forth. So that's the noise.
Absolutely. And this is where I would jump in and
Yes.
be able to say, look, I think from this perspective, there is a lot of work and the CNAPs are certainly working at adding context and connecting dots. And really this is what Mythos is doing. It is basically saying, look, I can connect I can connect some dots and add context and be able to say this is a critical vulnerability or these are things that are exposed. And they could be deeply theoretical. And so even if something is, it's highly critical, it's a high CVE and it's a high critical value, it's in an account or on an asset that you've deemed critical. It's very simple to say, yes, this is something I need to work on. But I think it's really important to say this is what the CNAPs and the vulnerability management tools might miss down here at the bottom right quadrant of the graphic here is that there could be additional connections that it's missing because it doesn't have the ability to be able to change the graph. It's only looking at the topology. It's only looking at what's there. And so there is an inherent theoretical component to this by basically saying, well, I can only see these things, I can only see this map, I can connect roads on a map, but I can't do anything else beyond that. And so um, uh, there's an inherent risk in that as well, which I think the next slide is
Yeah.
going to demonstrate.
So now we look at what's weaponizable. So, and this is kind of, we're trying to make this 3D and it was very hard.
Yeah,
Then we added this other like kind of layer on, and you've heard me talk about like the ability to kind of boost vulnerability so that you can get to something else and get to something else. And so this is where it's like these are the ones that you want to fix because these are the ones that can be weaponized to get to something very valuable eventually. So Nathan,
right. No, it very well could be that in that noise, that 99% or more of the stuff at the top left quadrant is a test environment, and the CV is there, and it's non-value. But I know, and I've been working on the cloud where somebody created my first Lambda or my first EC2 instance, or they created my first role and gave it, full permissions. And the organization forgets that's there. And so what ends up happening is there could be a test environment, but that role, maybe they connected it to another role to do testing in another environment. They took my first role and connected. They took my first Lambda, gave it a role that it shouldn't have had access to, and now it has access to your production environment and can do really bad things. That's what we're doing with the with our adversarial AI red team and what we're doing to be able to understand what's weaponizable. We're showing you what can actually be used against you to compromise your environment, wherever that is, whatever it looks like. These are the things that you need to focus on.
yeah, exactly. Okay. So what we deliver, so continuous red teaming, we talked about that. So it's an adversarial simulation to validate your security controls, also find the weaponized vulnerabilities that can be used to eventually get to something that's very high value. 99% false alert reduction, even more than that in some cases. So you're focusing on what really matters. See what CNAPs miss or what vulnerability management tools miss. So we're finding what is important to get that threat actor can use to get to something valuable in your cloud. We talked about the security control validation and then the optimization. So for the right of boom, pre-train your SOC on real attacks and see what those look like in your environment, because like we said, you might not be able to patch something. And so you need to have a plan B. What's your compensating control? Thankfully, we have that in our platform as well. So 5 ways to engage. So you can certainly email myself or Nathan. Please do so. We have a free trial on our website. So if you go to skyhawk.security, there's a free trial button right there. You can click on, fill out the form. Someone will follow up. You can look at our resources. If you want to email the sales team, please do that as well. So, a lot of different ways to work with us. Nathan and I put our emails up there first because, I know that some people don't always want to talk to a sales rep first. That's okay. If you want to talk to Nathan and I, we're happy to talk with you first. It's not a big deal.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. So a couple other questions that came in. Um, so actually, Nathan, I think you covered this already because we didn't talk about the clouds that we support. And so someone asked, which was a really reasonable question to ask.
Oh, I
You did
thought I
touch on
slipped
it.
it in.
You did.
Yes. Yeah, we cover AWS, Azure, GCP. We're focused on public cloud. Yeah. So apologies for not leading with
I
that, but
know we should have it on a slide. That's my fault.
no
So
no worries.
um, and then the pricing, I can handle this. So this is pricing by protected cloud assets. There are some things are one-to-one. So like an EC2 instance, an S3 bucket, those are considered one cloud asset. A Lambda is not one cloud asset. So there's 50 of those that becomes one cloud asset. That's the pricing model. And then there's something else that came in and I'm not sure how to answer or if we can answer, but they were
Okay.
wondering how we would integrate into the patching process that they have within their organization.
Interesting. Yeah. So uh, again, when you think about a patching process inside of an organization, what we're doing with our unified vulnerability management and what we're offering when we provide that understanding of weaponization or what is weaponizable inside of your environment for your cloud and how you're patching that. Obviously, you're going to be using some sort of tooling to manage which one of those go first. Most, and again, from an operationalization standpoint, most of our customers are using a ServiceNow or a Jira, or they may have from a security team perspective, they may be using Slack or Teams or something else, some other maybe even SOAR to help them be able to prioritize and manage these things. But from a vulnerability standpoint, which is really what we're talking about when we talk about Mythos and what Project Glasswing is doing and what that's bringing to the table, is when you get an output from Skyhawk that says this particular asset, or when we'll create a ticket in ServiceNow or Jira that says, hey, there is this weaponizable vulnerability in your environment. When you think about what patch you need to do first, if that vulnerability is associated in that patch list or it's not in your patch list and you have it deprioritized, this should create now a sense of urgency for that patch to correct that CVE. So that's we're not going to be your vulnerability management tool of record, right? But what we do is provide amplification to your operational process for correcting those vulnerabilities.
All right, sounds good. And that's it for questions. So
All
thank
right.
you so much for joining us. And the recording will be available on our YouTube channel and on our website. So thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you.